Happy Wednesday, 21st of July, last day of term year 10. You have made it. One more hour to go and you would have completed your first year of your GCSE course. And I genuinely am sorry not to say goodbye and to wish you a happy summer in person. But we're going to imagine that you understand that the value of a good education is to keep learning, to love the learning. And we're going to go straight in with an opening task. Now, we know that we're looking to write another type of speech, an exam style speech, and we're just going to start with a quick check-in with the opening, with the character and the setting stage of a real speech. So guys, look at what I've circled here. School Minister Nick Gibb. Now, if you remember him from yesterday, we mentioned him as a potential peg. So although we're going to quickly look at how he writes a speech about good education, imagine that, we're also going to be able to think that anything he says we can use as evidence and research in our own speech. So we can name drop Nick Gibb, Schools Minister Nick Gibb. School Minister Nick Gibb says, School Minister Nick Gibb argues that a good education. So we can begin to use him to glean ideas and evidence for when we write up our speech. So guys, let's just quickly check in. So he started to make this case yesterday. We're going to look at some other things today. But according to Nick Gibb, what two things make for a good education in his opinion? So what does he say? So School Minister Nick Gibb explains the importance of a core academic curriculum and the value of excellent teachers. So what makes for a good curriculum, a good education in his opinion? So write down two things that make for a good education are a good curriculum, an academic curriculum, and excellent teachers. So guys, if you were stuck yesterday and you don't know what makes for a good education, you can now begin to develop your ideas in response to Nick Clegg. Do you agree? Do excellent teachers make for a good education? Is it actually the curriculum, the what you're being taught that makes for a good education? Or is it something more than that? So write down that a good education equals core curriculum, excellent teachers. Now, he says here at his speech, so this is when the speech actually begins. Can I start by saying thank you for inviting me to come and speak today? It is a great pleasure to be back at my old college. One thing that I miss enormously from my undergraduate days is the time to think and the time to read. Ministerial duties permitting, I still try to carve out spare hours to enjoy a good book. Ever since becoming schools minister, I have been particularly entertained by passages in novels which address English schools. So actually, how does he greet his audience and how is he getting them on side? So can you find which words or phrases show him greeting his audience and getting them on side? Also, what words or phrases is showing that he's creating an ethos, a face of respect and politeness? What words or phrases create a sense of respect or politeness? What words are getting the audience on side? So just give yourself a minute to write down 1 to 3 answers, 1 to 3 words or phrases to answer these two questions. Okay, so what can we say for this one? Okay, so now it's that was your time to pause. So now what is getting his audience on side? How is he being politeful and respectful? Brilliant. Did you say thank you? Good. Yes, thank you. He's using politeness terms. Thank you for inviting me to come and speak to you today. It is a great pleasure. So he's complimenting them. It's a pleasure to be back at his old college, and he says thank you. Now, we wrote the opening of our speeches yesterday, but it might be that you start to think, oh, I could put a thank you in. I could talk about being back in my college, or it's a great pleasure to be speaking at my Leavers Day. You know, can I start by saying thank you for inviting me to speak in our Leavers Day celebrations? It is a great pleasure to be here today talking to you about what makes for a great education. Now, he actually then does an element of a peg that we didn't talk about yesterday. We talked about pegs and using a rhetorical figure yesterday in our opening. Now, he uses a different type of peg. He uses an anecdote. So he tells a personal story. He gives us information about his life. So what do we learn from his anecdote? What do we learn that he likes? What do we learn that he misses? And one other thing that we learn about him. So really quickly, I'm just going to say pause for a minute. Write down, what do we learn about him? What does he like? What does he miss? What else could we learn? So press pause and we'll go through your answers in a minute. Okay, guys, so what do we learn that he likes? Well, he says that he likes reading books. He enjoys a good book. He misses being able to think and read. And he's a minister. He's got ministerial duties. He's the school's minister. He enjoys novels about English schools. Now, this is an example then of a real speech that uses the character and setting in a slightly different way, but it still is highlighting those core principles of that character and setting paragraph, isn't it? That you create a connection with your audience, you try and get them on side, you create an ethos, you make it clear what you're there to talk about and why. Okay, so that's just to kind of get us thinking back to yesterday and just to see how a real speech is doing it. We will come back to more of Nick Gibbs' speech later. But just to remind you then that really across yesterday and today, we're just seeing how we change and adapt what we did for our speech writing for the NEA, and we will record that in September, guys. I don't want you to think that that has suddenly disappeared. You will still need to be recorded in September. You've just got a summer to mature and grow in confidence to be recorded in class. So we were looking at what's transferable from that task into an exam situation. And we see that sometimes in the exam, it will give you a direction, a task where you have to write a speech. So yesterday we've begun the invention and the planning of a speech for a school or leavers day to explain what we think makes for a good education. And at the end of yesterday's lesson, we did a mini plan and we'd written our character and our setting stage. So we're going to look today at what comes next. Now, the other thing that they do look for, particularly because this is a written response, look at this. You get 24 marks for content and organization. You get 16 marks for technical accuracy. Now, without mentioning any names, I'm just going to say things like capital letters, full stops. Okay, that there are some of you that still, when you write, go all for the content, all for the ideas, but you lack your technical accuracy. You don't think it matters, okay? We spend time with what we value. And now I need you to see this, that in an exam, your ability to use capital letters and full stops and other punctuation is 16 marks. Now, I know today we're not going to fix all of that, but I just want to make you aware that what we are going to think about is some of the stylistic content that helps get you the higher marks. And we're going to just have a little bit of fun to start with. Now, I say fun because for me it is. It's what I enjoy. For fun, loosely, on a Wednesday, last day of term, you might have been expecting something else. But we're going to be thinking, oh, sorry, this was yesterday. This is what we were asked to do. And we're going to be thinking about the style. So how do you get high on that marks of 24? Well, you can use metaphor and simile in your speech. Now, guys, you will know that you don't have a copy of this. So you've got to quickly draw some of these images. Now, you're not going to get all of them done. Okay, I'm going to give you about 4 minutes when I say go. So you would draw a picture and you would match it with the right term. So you can use the inspiration on the boards to help you design your picture. So for example, if we looked at this first picture, so if you all draw a world with some hands holding it, which words are going to match with that idea, with that image? Yes, hold the world in your hands. So you might draw that image and match it with the phrase, hold the world in your hands. So guys, you have got 4 minutes. In that 4 minutes, I want you to draw as many of these icons as you can and to write under them or beside them the key idea or image that goes with it. So if we were doing the next one real quick, I would draw a lighthouse and I would find the phrase lighthouse, okay? Storm, I could match with the lighthouse. Now, some of the words can be used more than once. It's just about your matching. What you see goes where. So guys, you are going to draw the picture and then match it with the right word or phrase in a minute. And this is going to help us to create a high style metaphor or simile. On your marks, get set, draw and match the words now. Okay, so hopefully your teacher helped you out by pressing pause and you would have had a time to think about these images and words and phrases that we can lock them to. So let's see if you got it right. Okay, so we've got a monster, we've got a storm, we've got a key to unlock the future, we've got that image of blindness. Then we had an image of slavery, being at a crossroads, the power of choice, a lighthouse, being silenced, a thief, a tidal wave or a tsunami, a ticket out, light the way, imprisonment, and holding the world in your hands. Now, out of all those images, which three do you think you could link to a good education? So, would we say that a good education is like being attacked by a monster? No. So we're not going to bank that one. Is a good education like being caught in a storm? No. Could a good education be the key to unlocking a future or your future? Yes. So guys, if you'd already drawn that one, I want you to circle it in your book because that would work with our theme of education. If you didn't get it written down, I want you to quickly draw a key and write key to unlocking the future. Now guys, could we talk about good education? Could we create a link in any way to blindness? Yes or no? Now, if you think you could, there's some here that are obvious, like a key to unlocking the future, some that are more discreet. So actually, a good education stops us moving forward in a state of blindness. A good education opens your eyes. Ignorance is a blindness of the masses that means we do not see the value that a good education gives us. So we could talk about blindness in education, but it might be harder. What about slavery? Now, you might be sat there thinking, gosh, a bad education is like being a slave. It's like chaining me and shackling me in slavery. But did you know? I love this. I love this. This is one of my go-to places when I try and convince people the importance of education, particularly reading. That during at the beginning of the revolution, the slavery revolution in America, at the time when there were still slaves. So when we start to think about the process of the emancipation of slaves in America, do you know what started the slave revolution? What actually brought together the slaves and made them realize that this way of being treated was wrong and that they could do something about it? A slave owner educated his slaves. Shock horror. A slave owner decided that he thought it was really important that his slaves could read the Bible. So he taught them to read and he gave them access to the Bible. Now, we have some misconceptions about the Bible sometimes, but the Bible is a huge narrative about slaves being set free and that God wants slaves to be set free. So these slaves in the American South, still under huge kind of travesty, being kept as slaves, actually it was through education that they gained their freedom. So a bad education can keep people metaphorically in slavery. Yeah, it can enslave them to the wrong ideas. It can enslave them in classrooms. It can enslave them. But a good education is a way to release people. Lovely phrase, if you're a quick writer, the emancipation of slaves. Emancipation means to set people free. So a good education can emancipate slaves. Yep, it can free us to be free. Okay, at a crossroads. Okay, so we could talk, remember it's a speech, it's a college leavers day. We're here today facing a crossroads as we can choose the way of our future. So we could use that one, it might not be the best. So remember, any of these metaphors you think you could use in a speech about a good education, make a note of them. Now guys, does a good education or should a good education be about the power of choice? Some people would argue that a good education is that students are given a choice. Okay, so we could secure that one. What about a lighthouse? Okay, so with a lighthouse, it's the idea that good education could be like a lighthouse. It guides us, it keeps us safe. A good education should keep people safe. It should guide and give them direction. And it should be seen and available to all. So actually, that could work quite well. I just made that one up. Okay, silenced. Now, the metaphor of being silenced comes up. It's a reoccurring motif, but would we use it in education? Good education is about silencing people? Well, no, it's really not. So maybe not the best one for us. A thief. Can we talk about a thief? Education being like a thief. Could we talk about education being a tidal wave, a tsunami that drowns us or washes us away? Might not be one we want to use. What about a ticket out? Oh, a good education is your ticket to a future. A good education could light the way. Despite some students' belief that a good education imprisons them and enslaves them, we're here to suggest today that a good education is about freedom. Now, guys, we could talk about a good education means that you come out with the world in your hands. So, at this point, I would just like you to pause and to choose at least 3 of these ideas, these metaphors that you're going to attempt to use and build into your speech. Okay, now the simplest way, okay, to create a metaphor using one of those images, to link it to education, is to use the if and then structure. So if education is a ticket into a brighter future, then it must be valued. Then we must ensure that everybody gets a chance to go on the journey. Yeah, don't like that. That was too wordy. Okay. If a good education is the key to unlocking your future, then we must make sure that everybody is given that key. If a good education is like a light that helps dispel ignorance, then we must make sure education and our education burns brightly. If good education is like, if education gives you the power of choice, then we must make sure that all people get an education that is based on excellent teachers and a strong curriculum. Just nicking some Nick Gibb. Okay, so with this then, I just want you to think about one of the images you've written. Okay, I just want you to start to create one metaphor that just says, if education is, so a key to unlocking your future, the best antidote to slavery, the best cure for blindness, then we must protect it. Then we must make sure it's available to everybody. Okay, so you're just going to create a metaphor. You're going to write a metaphorical sentence. If you can find you do these quite quickly, you could write 1 or 2 using the different images to see which one you like. So your time to create your high style metaphor begins in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, guys, so that metaphor that we've just written, we're going to bank that. We could use that at any time in what comes next. So yesterday we created our character and our setting. Potentially we might need to add to that, but we are going to go for it today. And we're going to use as a minimum these sentence stems up on the board to write the next sections of our speech. Okay, now we know that we want to integrate our metaphor at some point, okay, and that you're going to be given the rest of this session to create a written speech under time conditions, not in silence, but feeling that different pressure of trying to create this under time conditions. So I'm going to just say, have a really wonderful half term, summer. At the teacher's discretion, they can decide whether they would like you to write silently or whether they don't mind if you're talking quietly. So as a minimum, you can see each of these red sentence stems is going to enable you to complete a sentence, to develop an idea. So when we talked about that metaphor, so look at our rising action, a good education is. So we could say something like a good education is our ticket to an exciting future. Okay, so we can bring in, so you're going to have the rest of this lesson to do your speech. Okay, so teacher's choice, silent or not. Now, I just want to draw attention. Remember, the rising action outlines the main point. So although I've got a good education is because, but so, that's a reminder. Yesterday, we came up with 3 points we might make about a good education. Now, this is a nice phrase for the big emotional point. You know, I make no apologies for loving learning. I make no apologies for advocating for education because I believe it's the way that we, you know, I'm just trying to think of one of our metaphors. I make no apologies for loving the learning. For me, education is the ticket to a better future, is the key to unlocking my potential. Yep, so we could bring in our metaphors at the emotional point when we're talking about a good education. Now, remember the tone. So it might be that you've said, okay, what a good education is. So if we're looking at this change bit, come on, if we can change the idea that education is valueless, you know, if we can change the attitude that we don't need no education, then people will fall in love with learning and realize what's important. So you've got these sentence stems to help you. Now I'm going to put this back up in 2 minutes. Okay, I just want to show you something else. So these are just some examples, as I said, from other writers about how they've begun to make their case. So here you go. In a great school, happy, healthy and high achieving children enjoy their school days, making lifelong friendships and secure lifetime memories. They leave with qualifications, that open doors of opportunity, but more importantly, with qualities of character mean that they are ready and able to make the world a better place. So that's a lovely example of another opinion, another writer about what makes for a great education. So you can see that they've written through 2 sentences that set up their opinion of what makes for a great education. Now, that's the equivalent of our setting part and beginning to make our key points. So there's things here that we can use in our paragraph, in our speech, that we could argue that a great school, a great education, it's about being happy, it's about being healthy. Look at that lovely HHH, 3 ideas, happy, healthy, high achieving. Now that's a really nice thing that we could steal. So we could magpie, happy, healthy and high achieving. So in a minute, I'll ask Miss or Sir just to press pause. And if there's any words or phrases you want to quickly steal, you want to magpie, we can do that. So we could steal happy, healthy and high achieving children. We could identify that, yes, a good qualification is part of education, but look at the other things this draw attention to: friendships, memories. So actually, and I love this, more importantly, the qualities of character. So when we're thinking about, I've gone the wrong way. This rising action where we're outlining our main points, we could say good education is about qualifications but a good education is also about memories. A good education is about a quality of character, developing character. So we could go down the Nick Gibb route. A good education is about curriculum. It is about excellent teachers, but it's also about memories and experiences. So we can have those 3 points. So that's a really nice one. So the teacher is just happy to pause it there for a couple of minutes. Now, all you're doing is stealing and magpieing any words or phrases or ideas that you can use in your speech. Okay, now talking in Nick Gibb, this is his next section of his speech. So there is a little bit more here. Okay, so he's done his intro and then he comes on to explain what he thinks makes for a good education. And he says, knowledge, I hear people gasp. Surely education is about so much more than that. Isn't it about creativity, problem solving, thinking creatively, critically, and inventing? Yes, I agree wholeheartedly that a good education is all about those things. But each of them is dependent upon and impossible without a fundamental basis of knowledge about the subject. So that's a lovely example of a yes, but moment. Yep, I believe, or I say, that a good education is about being creative, but it also needs a basis of knowledge. I believe that a good education is about lifelong memories and children being happy, but they have to learn something in that process. So this is just a lovely example of how you can have your opinion. Yep, so remember we planned on our table our yes, because, but then a but moment. Okay, and then he does these lovely yes, I agree, which reminds us he is writing a speech. And this is quite a clever, I hear people gasp. So it reminds us in his speech writing that he's got an audience in mind. Okay, put simply, a commitment to social justice requires us to place knowledge at the heart of our education system. Now he is using metaphor. Here's the heart. Okay, and this is not a statement of opinion. It is a fact established by decades of research, as I shall soon explain. It is an unfortunate fact, however, that many modern conceptions of education either ignore the importance of knowledge or actively deride it. So he does go on to create a counter argument, what people misunderstand about education. Now, guys, this is not to say that you have to copy all his ideas, but I'm just showing you that really what I would love you to achieve today is that opening section, the character, the setting that we wrote yesterday. Then I want you to introduce what you think good education is, to try and create a but moment, and to follow through our statements here as a minimum. So guys, on your last day of term, before you go on summer holiday, when your English teacher, evilly, because she's not there in the classroom with you, is asking you to do yet one more piece of writing, This is about your good education, guys. This is about you learning and applying and securing knowledge to take forward to year 11. So I make no apologies, evil laugh, for asking you to write the speech. Have fun with it. Let me see in your work what makes for a good education. And guys, what I would also say is it now gives you a choice for September. See how clever I am? If you actually feel that this is a speech that feels more natural to you, that you feel you actually have done a better job on this one than the one you've been writing, you then can be recorded or assessed delivering both, and we can put your best one forward. See? Like buy one, get one free. Write one speech, write 2 speeches, and then we can see which is your best. Okay? So have a really lovely summer and enjoy writing your speeches on education.